We're learning how to paint with alcohol inks. Put your alcohol inks in your palette. Now while those dry, we're going to stamp the image onto a transparency. I used a copier transparency, but you can use any transparency that you have. Using Stays-On ink, you're going to stamp your image. Choose an image that has a nice wide open area to paint. Tap the ink pad around to get good coverage, and then carefully place it over the transparency. Be careful because transparencies are slick and you can smear your image very easily. Take your time to press down around the stamp to make sure that your image is all the way onto the transparency, and then carefully pull it away. Now we're going to add a rub-on to the front of the transparency. This is a nice way to add a sentiment onto a transparency. I used one by Making Memories. Just line it up on the front and rub it onto the front. Carefully pull away, and now we're ready for the next step. It's important to turn this whole transparency over. We want to paint on the back side of it. If we paint on the front side, we will erase the Stays-On ink with the blending solution. So we're going to fill our water pen with Adirondack blending solution, and we'll use that to reactivate the dried alcohol inks. We'll take our paintbrush over to the image and start painting the daisies. We're going to go from lightest color to the darkest color. So we'll start here with yellow, and then we'll move on to our green. You can add in shading and light and dark areas by adding more alcohol ink. Okay, now we're going to the next color, which is green. We're going to pick that up and start painting in our leaves. Make sure that your alcohol ink dries in between colors so it doesn't bleed. Now you're going to come back and see where it's bled in here. I'm going to clean my brush off by tapping it over on the craft sheet, because I want to take off this area where there's too much brown. So just take that clean brush and wipe off the color. You need to leave it time to dry after you get it all off before you repaint it. But you can take any colors off doing this. Okay, now we're going to color this big bucket. This is a nice large area here with lots of room for shading. And you can see on the stamp where the shading is. It's got lines there. That's where we're going to put darker color. And then we'll pull the lighter colors into the middle once we get around the dark parts of it. When we get done with this, we're going to do the next step. This is where we're going to color the back of this image with gesso or white acrylic paint. I'm using gesso. This is so that our background won't show through and you can see the area that we painted. You want to try to keep it all inside the areas that have alcohol ink. You can see here that I also edged the edge of the transparency and behind the rub-on with the gesso. We're going to glue this down with a dimensional adhesive and just go all around the edges with that adhesive. It's going to help this to stay onto the background. So just take the background piece and lay it carefully over that. Make sure it's lined up. I kind of picked it up to do this. And then you can see now the whole image. We're going to adhere the card front to the card base. using double-sided tape roller. And there you have it. We did some painting on transparency with alcohol ink. I hope you'll give this a try.